Welcome to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast, the highly rated digital marketing podcast that provides weekly digital marketing tips and strategies from some of the world's top digital marketers and e-commerce entrepreneurs that will help you take your digital marketing to the next level. Sit back and enjoy this power-packed episode hosted by Arlen Robinson, who is an e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing expert with over 20 years of experience. Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. My name is Arlen Robinson, and I am your host. And today we've got a very special guest, Brandon Cockrell, who has been in the business of marketing, sales, and business development for more than a decade. He's the president of Linchpin Sales Interactive, which he founded in 2016 in order to escape the corporate world and make a real difference in the lives of people looking to grow their brand. He and his team are the marketing geniuses for the modern era. Marketing can make or break any businesses. And in the new age of e-commerce, everyone's working from home, but many feel like they're in uncharted territory. Brandon has been ahead of the game from day one and works to make his clients' marketing campaigns perform for their businesses. Welcome to the podcast, Brandon.
Well, I appreciate you having me. That was an inspiring to me. Made me feel great, that intro.
All right.
So I appreciate you going through that.
Yeah, no problem. That is good. Yeah, looks like you're well on your way with your team, and I'm really super excited to kind of dig deep and see how you can enlighten us and empower us on the topic of today, which we're going to be talking about and diving deep into omnichannel marketing and how an e-commerce business could take advantage of it, what it is, and some ins and outs of that. But before we do get into all that, I know I kind of touched a little bit about on your background, but why don't you enlighten us a little bit more about how you got into what you're doing today?
Yeah, so it's kind of a up and down story, I guess. It wasn't a straight line for by any stretch of the imagination, but I was in the corporate world for about 11 to 12 years before I actually started this business. So I was mainly in sales. The last few years, whenever I was working with the PGA Tour and the TPC property division, I was doing a lot more on the marketing side and really started getting in. And this was, to 2014, 2015, really starting to get into the digital side of stuff and how that really correlates to sales. And so started getting in there. We had the birth of our first daughter. That kind of opened my eyes to think differently with what I wanted for the future. And, I got to the point where I just felt like I was being held back a little bit, not intentionally or anything. I think it was just kind of, hey, I'm ready to go and do something that I believe will make a bigger impact. And so I kind of quit on a whim about 6.5 years ago now and started this business. And, initially this business was not designed or planned to be even on the digital side of things. I originally had started it as a part-time sales management business. And after the first 30 or 60 days, and I'd actually gotten a couple of clients, which was kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. But the one thing that I learned as I was sitting there and I was working with sales reps and teams and businesses, I started to realize that the main issue wasn't necessarily the closing. The main issue was a lot of times getting more inbound opportunities, being able to engage with your prospects, leveraging the digital resources, social media, all of this opportunity out there. So about 60 to 90 days in, I pivoted and really started going all in on social and digital and all, this whole world that we had available to us, and just started creating videos and doing everything that I had to do because I really didn't have a choice. I had a newborn child, Then we found out we were pregnant with our second child the day I quit
Okay,
my
wow.
corporate job, and so it kind of put a little bit more of that pressure on. But
Sure,
I decided to go all in, kind of on the digital side. I saw that becoming a
sure.
big opportunity. Plus, my wife, who now works full time in the business as well,
Okay.
she was a digital manager for a large healthcare system here in Atlanta. And so, talking with her and just kind of talking about the things that were on the horizon. And that's what morphed this business and this brand more on the digital side of things, and
Okay.
kind of got to the part of the e-commerce side of business. And that's really where we started to really thrive.
Okay.
And for a long time, we still do, with some partners, work on a performance basis. So
Mhm.
we worked a lot like commission sales reps whenever it came to, we have to get you sales and drive sales, otherwise we're not going to get paid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really what allowed us to grow to what we are today.
Okay, gotcha. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's a great story. And it definitely does take a leap of faith to kind of jump out there on your own. I know, like you mentioned, when you did take that leap of faith, you didn't anticipate you're gonna have your second child right then and there. But
Yeah.
life happens, and you just got to pivot and just keep on moving. But yeah, I can definitely understand where you're coming from as far as leap of faith. I founded my business, OmniStar Interactive, over 22 years ago, believe it or not,
Wow.
working just for a couple of years. Myself and my business partner worked for different consulting firms in Northern Virginia. And then, we took a leap of faith. This was kind of when the internet was just taking shape.
Yeah, I
And,
was about to say, you were
kind
real
of,
early on.
yeah, very, very early. Yeah. So we got in there early, and we started off as developing an agency, a web development agency, creating custom websites and custom web applications. And, the rest is history. But yeah, it definitely takes a leap of faith, leaving from coming from a salaried position when you have that steady income, to just getting out there and then totally on your own. It's like, if you don't sell, you don't eat. And, I
Exactly.
know, where that's coming from. So, yeah, definitely applaud that for sure. Well, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, today we're going to be talking about omni-channel marketing. And you kind of mentioned a little bit of that in telling us a little bit about your background. For people that aren't familiar with that term, what exactly is omni-channel marketing?
Well, it's just being available everywhere that your audience could be, or most likely is, and delivering on those touch points that it takes to not just make people aware that your brand, your product, your service exists, but working them through that buyer's journey and continuing to build that relationship, build that credibility, continue to show them different pieces, different sides of your brand, of what it is your product or your service offers, and be able to deliver that. So everywhere they're going, they're seeing your brand, and it continues to drive them and move them through that buyer's journey. And,
Yeah.
just making sure that you're available for where they prefer as well,
Yeah.
whether that's your own website, or if you go to a marketplace or a third party like an Amazon or eBay, or any of those options as well. So it's really just about being everywhere whenever it comes to this whole digital world.
Yeah, very true. And these days, I think it's more important than ever to to have this approach, just because I think the pool of buyers and potential customers, unless it's just me, I think it's more diverse than ever. There's so many places that you can go to tap
Mhm.
into that customer. Pre the internet, pre this whole digital age, things were a lot more predictable as far as marketing. You kind of know what you needed to do. You could market in the newspaper, magazines, different trade rags, yellow pages, white pages, those type of things. The traditional print media, or TV and radio, and that's it. That's basically it.
Yeah.
There wasn't really too many options. There really wasn't that whole array of all of these social networks that are out there, where you can really, meet people where they are, and, you can kind of decide which channels are going to be right for you, which really actually brings me to my next question. With all of these diverse marketing channels out there, it can be a little bit overwhelming for e-commerce businesses. So how do they really decide which channels they should actually focus on, and what would be right for them?
Yeah, no, great question. It's one we get a lot. Obviously, at the end of the day, the right answer is just test. Obviously doing some testing, even if you're just doing it on a small level to figure out, where your opportunity is. And one platform, it doesn't mean that if you're not getting the top of funnel and more of the prospecting side, if you're not getting the results that you want, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be something that you need to leverage whenever it comes to retargeting and staying in front of them and creating those touch points, but really understanding what you're trying to accomplish first and foremost with your campaign. Is it something where I'm just trying to get their attention and grab their attention in order to make them know that I exist and that my product exists? Or are you just trying to do more of a direct response, more of a middle of funnel or bottom of funnel type a message or campaign? Understanding that, obviously, what's your main goal with each ad or piece of content that you're putting out there, so that then you can test and see which platform, as you go out there and you're just kind of testing different platforms, which platform is getting you the best results, which ones are performing the best whenever it comes to finding your audience top of funnel, and then using and leveraging all the other channels for more retargeting. One exact example would be the Google Display Network. One thing that we see with the display ads, obviously from a top of funnel perspective, they're not as strong. They're not providing that level of results should we only run Google Display. However, Google Display is extremely effective whenever it comes to retargeting and staying in front of, because their audience network is so big. And you're able just to show up on very credible places. Somebody's reading an article and your display pops up on an article that they deem as very credible. Automatically, that's going to provide them with a little bit different view of your brand, just being alongside that. So really testing, obviously, if you're just starting off and you haven't run an ad at all, we still see a ton of opportunity with Facebook and Instagram being the best place to start, even if you're just going to start on one channel for majority of audiences. TikTok obviously has some good opportunities from a prospecting standpoint. They still have some work to do there as well, especially whenever it comes to retargeting and targeting in general. But trying to understand where your audience is, where they're most likely hanging out, is what you want to look at. Start with those platforms first that make the most sense. And then if you're not getting the results, no matter what you're trying to do, then I would suggest trying other platforms. Yeah. And then once you find that one that's getting you the best quality traffic, the best, obviously the best stats, and you're hitting all your benchmarks and your KPIs, then leveraging all the other platforms to just do some simple retargeting.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. There's a couple of quick things I wanted to point out, though. I mean, one of the things that you mentioned right off the bat, which is really key, is, before a brand needs to do anything or decides to do anything, they have to determine, really what those goals are. What is it that they're trying to achieve with these campaigns? Like you said, you want to focus on getting that initial, marketing platform to be for your top of funnel, then everything else kind of retargeting, getting more brand awareness there. So really got to understand what are your goals. Are you looking just for maybe leads? Are you looking for direct sales? Are you looking to educate customers about your brand? So there's a lot of things you really have to decide before jumping out there, because as you and I know, and most people probably have seen, each of these different platforms is a little bit different. Touch points are different with customers. The demographics are different. So, all of those things do come into play when you're making that, you're making that decision on which, particular route to go for sure.
100%.
And, with all of this in mind, let's say an e-commerce brand says, okay, I select, let's say, Instagram as the top of funnel. I'm going to want to try to get some direct sales from Instagram. And then I'm going to use some of the other networks as more just, informing people, doing retargeting, those types of things. Maybe use some Facebook. Maybe I'm going to do some things on Pinterest, Twitter. I'm going to kind of throw all of that into the mix. I think the next question that a brand is going to have is, with all of these things in these marketing campaigns that you're running, let's say you're doing all of these in-house, you're not using an agency to manage this for you. What are really some tools or resources, that a brand should utilize in order to effectively manage all of these different campaigns and make sure everything is in sync and that you're not burning unnecessary cash on campaigns that aren't performing well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and there's a ton. Whenever you look at that, I think whenever it comes to tools, obviously, with the continuation of privacy, the continuation of regulations, the continuation of iOS 14 type scenarios where tracking has become extremely difficult for these platforms. That's really where you're seeing the biggest impact. They're not able to track effectively. And so what you get is you're kind of getting them predicting what's going to happen based off of data that they have in the past. And it doesn't accurately tell you, exactly where something may be performing the best or what platform. You're just not getting accurate information, which leads to you trying to make decisions on stuff that's not 100%. So third-party tracking softwares, we actually utilize something called Hyros, if you're familiar with it, that we use for our partners and our clients that allows us to track a lot more accurately and across all platforms. So really getting in, there's others outside of Hyros that you can use. Hyros isn't the only, it's just the one that we utilize, but there's a lot of third-party resources and tools that you can leverage that will help you make the best decisions and know that it's more accurate, and it shows you the full journey of that client, where what's working and what's not. So obviously that's a big part. As far as some resources that I would recommend, because if you are looking to do things across channel, you are looking to kind of create that omnipresence approach. Every platform kind of has their own feel, right? And whenever people go there, so the same piece of content that you're putting out on Pinterest or on LinkedIn may not be what you need to put out on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. And so really having and finding, even if you just contract it out, a video editor or a content creator or graphic designer or a copywriter is very, very important. Very, very good resource to invest in whenever it comes to that. And so the one thing, and I think the last one was what, best practices?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, whenever it comes to the omnipresence, I mean, I talked about it a little bit, but really identifying as you get started, where is your best prospecting, so to speak, platform? Where are you getting the best results of getting attention and awareness for the most cost-efficient price? Obviously you want to make sure that it's getting out and you're getting the click-through rates, you're getting the cost per clicks, you're getting those numbers within the benchmarks that you want for that platform. And obviously I'm not going to get into those stats. You can Google a lot of times average click-through rates for each platform and all of that. So the information's out there if you're trying to do it on your own. But you want to make sure that you identify where is that top of funnel and where am I getting the best awareness and attraction whenever it comes to people finding out about my brand for the very first time. And then it becomes, where can I get really the most impressions for the most cost-efficient price from a retargeting standpoint, really analyzing that and saying, okay, where does this make sense for me to put this from a retargeting standpoint and even a top-of-funnel standpoint from time to time. But, I think the biggest thing, if there's anything that I can't stress enough, and I think that we tend to get away from this, and the biggest part of being omnipresent and omnichannel is getting people into your database and off these platforms. And that would be my biggest thing to anybody out there, especially if you're just starting off, or maybe you've been around for a while. We tend to get caught up, and because there's so much noise and there's so much shiny objects out there whenever it comes to this platform's working, you should be on that, or go to this platform. This platform's where you need to be in. thinking about all these platforms,
Yeah.
and you are completely negating the most powerful asset, especially as an e-commerce brand, and that is building up your database
Sure.
and running offers, promotions, contests, especially if you're starting off, just to get people to give you their contact information to get into your database. And now that database becomes a whole nother channel that you have direct communication with. And so that's, probably the biggest thing that I would stress is the best practice. At the end of the day, obviously, you're trying to get in front of them, stay in front of them to build that brand, build that awareness, build that credibility, build that trust. But ultimately, get them off the platforms and into your database. And then you have direct line of communication to market to them.
Yeah, I like that. That's very important. And like you said, I think a lot of people get caught up in all of these features, the bells and whistles of these platforms, and then the engagement that they have on that platform. They forget, if they don't have that customer's information, if that platform goes away, tomorrow, then they're SOL, they are, they're gone. They've lost that relationship there. There's no other way to contact that person. So yeah, very important. And I'm really glad that you stressed that. Those platforms, they have a place, of course, because people are gathering there. People like these social networks. They like exchanging information, engaging with brands, engaging with their friends, family, all that. But at the end of the day, you got to get their info and you got to get them into your own database and your own pipeline. So yeah, very, very important. One other thing I wanted to kind of circle back on was, you kind of mentioned these resources and these tools and trying different things and doing some testing. In the world of sales, I'm sure you're familiar with the slogan ABC, always be closing, always close deals. In our whole digital world, when you're testing campaigns, it should be all ABT, always be testing. So you always got to test these campaigns, see what's effective, what's not. I know a lot of times people wonder when they're launching these campaigns, how long, or how do you know how long to run a particular campaign before all right, this is just not going to work? Like, I know it may be hard to tell or how to determine that, but when do you know that you've given it enough time to determine, the efficacy of anything that you're putting out there before you decide to pivot and pull your resources and focus them into a different platform?
Yeah, so and another great question, and you definitely want to have that planned out up front. And typically what we're looking at impressions, we're looking at, the amount of budget spent to get those impressions, obviously, because we want to know it's getting out in front of enough people, whether that's 1,000. And this can vary depending upon your market. It can vary depending upon, if you're looking locally, nationally, globally, you're going to want to make sure you've got those definitely honed in as far as we're going to run it until we hit this. Now, the one thing that I see happen a lot is people do stop too soon. And they just don't let it continue going because you start off a campaign, you get 72 hours in, the CPM is through the roof, and you're going, there's just no way I'm going to be able to afford it. It doesn't make sense. But then if you give it 24 more hours or make a small tweak, that CPM drops, 75%. And so, you've got to make sure you're giving it enough time. So typically what we're looking at is the impressions and trying to figure out how many impressions do we need to get in front of, and watching obviously the data to show us, okay, is this resonating around that number that we're looking to go, whether that's 1,000 impressions or, we're looking at 10,000 impressions, whatever it may be, just to give it enough time for us to be able to say we gave it a good test run and it's just not getting the stats that we want. So then we need to make some changes and go back at it again.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, you got to give it enough time. And I think you're right. The impressions are very key. You got to make sure you're getting enough eyeballs on it, because you could have something out there, but it's in the wrong area. You're targeting the wrong demographic, and you may not necessarily need to just can that particular campaign. You can just pivot it, adjust where you're targeting, and then, keep it going.
For sure. And to add to that, because you said something there that made me think about that. The other thing is really, look, everything, whenever it comes down, regardless if it's e-commerce or just marketing in general and sales in general and all of that, everything is about identifying the bottleneck. and process of elimination. And that's what it comes back to. So if you've got a campaign, you can't just send it to one audience and have that one campaign to one audience. You need to, really go after different audiences that you run that to. So, if you're just sending it to one audience, who knows if it's a creative, if it's the message, if it's the content, or is it the audience? And you've got to do enough there as well in order to make sure that you've got it out there to multiple audiences so that you can identify. And if all of them are kind of not working, then either one, you can try to correct that audience and try it again, or try changing some things up and see if that makes a big difference. So really making sure that you're doing everything you can to do a process of elimination. And that's really what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, because you don't want to pull the plug too early if you really haven't totally exhausted, a particular target area, target group. Because otherwise, it's just you could be, leaving some money on the table.
Yeah, for sure. And the one thing I wanted to add as well is that's one big part. Like, and you're probably aware of this as well, being in the industry and doing this for a living. That is where you will see a big difference between an agency that is in it every single day or a professional or a specialist that's in it every single day, because we've been doing it long enough. We now do something called rapid fire testing. We're able to see on a small budget and a lot smaller test what's going to really show the signs of working and be able to make that decision a lot faster, as you probably would, versus someone who's trying to run it on their own, or maybe they've got somebody that isn't necessarily a specialist in the field. They know enough to get it out there. So, it's things like that you may want to tap into, and look for someone who's kind of specialist in there to help you at least through the testing process. After that, it becomes a little bit more clear.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because, that's the power of working with an agency there. They, companies like you and other agencies, you kind of know what to look for, based on dealing with other companies, when you should pull the plug, when you should pivot. And so, that there is value in that, and you can definitely save money, rather than, maybe keeping something out there when it gets stale and you're achieving the right results. So that's definitely very important. Well, Brandon, as we get ready to wrap things up, I just wanted to see if you could share some examples of some e-commerce businesses that you're either familiar with or that you've worked with that have launched successful omni-channel marketing campaigns, and what were some specific things that they did that made them a successful campaign.
Yeah, so as far as some examples out there, I mean, there's some probably well-known brands whenever it comes to e-commerce. And I know the founders of these companies, they're out there and they're, trying to give back to the e-commerce community and all that, and offering up different trainings and all that. But, Boom by, I think it's Cindy Joseph, Ezra Firestone, I think does all the marketing for that, but they do a phenomenal job, obviously, as you would expect them to. Snow Teeth Whitening is another one, Josh Snow, and what everything he's doing, but that's a good one. Chewy, the pet brand, does a great job as well. Some of those well-known ones. Obviously, we've had an opportunity to work with brands in the beauty space. Michael Christopher Beauty is one that does a great job whenever it comes to his products, but being, just omni-channel, really diving in and being across and getting opportunities to put himself out there in the positions in front of his audience, whether that's more traditional setting like HSN, or if it's more, on the digital side of things as well, on social media. So there's a lot of resources, but some of those well-known brands, obviously, that I mentioned, you can easily find and look at and see where they're at as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I always encourage business owners and brands to take a look at that, what a lot of these big guys are doing, because, they're spending millions and millions of dollars on every single decision that they make, from small to large. And so, if you can kind of study what they're doing, sign up for their mailing list, even if it's a brand you're not even interested in, their products per se, you couldn't even use it. Purchase their products, get in their, maybe something small, so you can kind of get in their whole funnel and then figure out, how are they engaging with you? What do you see as far as retargeting? And you can really learn a lot.
For sure. And I think one thing to mention on that is, while these are big brands, A lot of people would instinctively think, well, they've got these huge budgets and that's how they're able to do that. And the reality is that's further, that can be further from the truth, right? Like that. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, we've run successful omnichannel campaigns for $1,000 a month for some clients. And if you're looking to go national, obviously just a few $1,000s a month can really do a lot for your brand. And, obviously they have to have big budgets because their audience is so big. As you're, depending upon where you're at, you're able to retarget. And whenever you're retargeting, these algorithms are set up. Their main goal is to keep you spending more money. So their job is to take the ad that you put out there and put it in front of the best people to get you the best return. That is all they're worried about. So if you've got a smaller audience, just having an ad campaign out there saying, I want you to show it to people that watched this video or went and checked out my website or took an action, they're going to find that person whenever they get on that platform, even if it's just one person at the very beginning. So you can put a very small budget across these platforms and still get the same effect and feel. And then you're able to grow as those continue to start bringing in results.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's not necessarily about the amount of the budget up front. Yeah, even with a small budget, just like a trial run, you can really kind of determine if something's going to work, and then slowly increase that, and then you can get a larger return on your investment at that point.
100%.
Well, Brandon, it's been awesome talking to you. I definitely learned a lot, and I know our listeners and viewers have as well. So it's definitely an area where it's not going anywhere. Omnichannel marketing is something that every business, I think, has to really stay on because of all of these different diverse channels that are out there. And so, you just got to figure out what works for your brand, do a lot of testing, and then double down on what works. It's just all about that. But lastly, before we let you go, I always like our listeners to get to know our people on the podcast a little bit more. So if you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact question about yourself that you think our listeners and viewers would be interested to know.
Yeah, this is always an uncomfortable question for me because I'm like, I don't know anything fun about me, but obviously just that, I'm married. My wife works full time in the business. She's kind of the brains, to be quite honest. She's the one that is over the accounts, and we have 2 children that we try to juggle as we build a business and the agency side of things and all of that. And so I think that's unique in itself, just trying to build a business with your significant, obviously there's ups and downs with it, but we're making it work, and it's fun most of the time. So hopefully that allows the audience to get a little bit
definitely
more knowledge in there.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate that. And that's good stuff. Like you said, to be able to work there in the trenches with your significant other, it takes a lot. And I know it can definitely help you guys grow because you're both fully invested. You're all in. Both of you are all in, working on the same end goal. So that's a positive thing, and that's really good to hear. Well, awesome, Brandon. Well, it's been great. Thank you for sharing that. And if any of our listeners want to reach out to you and pick your brain any more about omnichannel marketing or any digital marketing subject under the sun, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
Well, you can go to our website, linchpinsales.com. You can obviously follow us, LinkedIn, YouTube. Instagram's a great place. If you ever want to have questions or DM me, it's at Linchpin Sales. And, we do have a new program that I'm excited about as well. It's kind of for e-commerce, but it's also for small businesses as well, which you can go to acquireandclose.com to learn more about that.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We'll be sure to include that address in the show notes so people can get to that easily. And thanks again, Brandon, for joining us today on the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Thank you for listening to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Are you looking to take your digital marketing to the next level but are tired of weeding through countless YouTube videos with unproven and untrusted marketing strategies? Well, we have the answer for you. The More Sales Every Month online digital marketing course. In this information-packed course, you will learn effective keyword research, link building, content marketing, and much more to attract and convert your site visitors into paying customers. Just go to moresaleseverymonth.com and sign up today for a low one-time fee. In addition to this power-packed course, if you would like to get access to a growing repository of digital marketing articles, PDFs, and ebooks, check out getosi.com/resources and opt in to get full access to our library of priceless marketing information to help you take your digital marketing to the next level.